They value the community they work in and their employees. Night Waste Services is a collection partner providing residential garbage and recycling services to the city of Fort Worth. Thank you, Richard Knight. Our second sponsor here is IDEA Public Schools of Tarrant County. Founded in 2019 with its mission, College to and Through, IDEA Tarrant County serves over 4,000 scholars at 8 K through 12 campuses in the area. Recognized as an A-rated region by the Texas Education Agency, IDEA Public Schools is committed to its long history of 100% college matriculation. Tarrant County is leading the way with its first graduating class in 2026. Thank you, Dianelle Waters and IDEA Public Schools. And now, if I could also again have Dianelle Waters, Executive Director for IDEA Public Schools, to lead our invocation with Henry Borbola, Vice President at Sierra Bank, leading us in the national anthem.
Thank you, Madam President. May we all bow our heads, please. All that I am, Lord, I am because of thee. All that I am not because of me. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to fellowship with amongst friends on behalf of the Fort Worth Rotary Club. Lord, we thank you for the blessings that you bestow upon us on a daily basis. We ask that you continue to bless each head that is bowed, each family that is represented. We ask a special blessing today for our speaker, Mr. Pete Geren. Speak to him and through him while he continues to educate the city on the state of our public education system. We ask these blessings in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
We want to welcome all of our numerous visiting guests and Rotarians today. They are so numerous, and in the interest of time, we're not going to go through each and every one, but we certainly want to make sure we welcome, in particular, Mayor Maddie Parker and her team. Maddie. Also, I believe we have Mayor Stephanie Boardingham, Mayor of Forest Hill. Stephanie, if you're with us, welcome. And finally, we do have one very special visiting Rotarian. Gladys Senna is visiting all the way from Columbia. Gladys, where did you end up? Please stand so we can welcome you. Ah, there she is. Thank you very much for joining us. It has become one of our club traditions that we recite the four-way test each week, reinforcing what has become the world's most widely referenced statement regarding business ethics. It is even used by the Ghanaian judicial system. These words are displayed on billboards in court buildings throughout Ghana. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And now, to introduce past President Ames Fender for the newscast. He is the principal with Fender Andrade Architects.
Thank you. I feel about as welcome as an FBI agent at Mar-a-Lago. Sometimes the universe conspires to leave you no choice but to follow a certain path, and this is the case for my newscast today. The lead stories talk to our values as Rotarians and give us the hope for the future, fondly remembering and respecting our past. Warning, this might not be my funniest newscast ever. The lead story is, of course, the passing just yesterday of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at the age of 96. Having served her country for over 70 years, she was the only queen of the United Kingdom most people had ever known. Certainly true for this newscaster, and I would venture to guess probably most people in this room. She represented all that was good about England after it had been ravaged by World War II and was rebuilding. Even her role during World War II as a Jeep mechanic was inspiring and speaks to the woman she was and how her values of duty and service align with Rotary's service above self. To paraphrase the newly crowned queen from 1952, she devoted her life, however long it may be, to her country. Turned out to be quite a long and quite a devoted life for both her country and the world. From Sir Winston Churchill to Liz Truss only 3 days ago, the Queen met with 15 British prime ministers. From Harry Truman to Joe Biden, she met with 13 of the 14 US presidents. Care to venture a guess as to who the lone miss was? The lone miss was the Lone Star State's first president, LBJ. I think we should all admire and appreciate the dedication to service and the sacrifices the Queen made, and that she left the world a better place than she found it, if you ignore the whole global warming thing. The second story of the universe that conspired was the passing of another great woman of that greatest generation, and that is Fort Worth's own Georgianne Brown Carter Bam, at age 95. Georgianne was a force to be reckoned with, and one to enjoy immensely. Georgianne devoted herself to the community, her friends and family, and her passion for performing. She was a regular on the boards of the Granbury Opera House, where her first husband, the late Amon Carter Jr., would fill the house with busloads of Fort Worthians. I should know, I was one. Georgianne was one of my mother's best friends her entire life, which leads to the third component of the universal conspiracy behind this newscast. The first two stories are about the passing of iconic women from the greatest generation, which just so happens to be my mother's generation. Many of you know my mother passed away just over a year ago, at the age of 94. Until the pandemic, until the pandemic shut the world down in 2020, my mother was going full steam. At the age of 92, she still drove herself, by herself, to the Catskills in New York, a round trip she made for over 40 years every August to spend time with her only daughter and at that time her only grandchildren. My late sister Gage passed away 18 years ago and is buried in their community in the Catskills. This past week, I returned from a 4,171-mile round trip that took me through 11 states in 11 days, so I could have the honor of escorting my mother to one final celebration. This attempt at a newscast is my way of paying respect to three powerful women of the greatest generation, who, while not Rotarians, live their lives by the values we hold dear as Rotarians. They set examples for us to follow, no matter what role we play in our community. They showed us how to lead, how to be respected, because they treated others with respect. That is what we should learn from that great generation. Sorry for the lack of political jokes. The weather this weekend is supposed to be beautiful, sunny skies, high around 90s, lows in the 60s, and little chance of rain. Go out and enjoy.
Thank you, Ames, for that very heartfelt message. We have a series of announcements. If we could please have 4 individuals approach the stage because we want to maximize the time for our speaker. J.R. Labby, Richard Knight, Maddie Compton, Larry and Karen Anfin. First, we have past President J.R. Labby, managing principal and owner, the Writing Lab, talking to us about the U.S. Fort Worth Happy Hour.
Damn you, Ames vendor. They gave me a minute. Why don't I ever invest in waterproof mascara? All right. So tomorrow, Captain Jeremiah Peterson, Master Senior Chief Frank Wilson, and 4 of the sailors of the USS Fort Worth will be in town. Tomorrow night, they will have the privilege of going to the TCU Tarleton State game, both pre-gaming in the parking lot, so I don't know how much of that game they'll see. Sunday morning, they are participating in City Center's 9/11 memorial, where they will go up and down the stairs in the Bank of America 4 times to represent the 110 floors of the World Trade Center. Sunday night, we have a 10th anniversary commissioning dinner if you'd like to come. Karen and Larry Anfin have graciously volunteered the wonderful Coors, weirdest space in town for us to have the meeting. You can come see Larry's beer can collection if you'd like. Then Monday, they're going to visit with JROTC Navy cadets at Arlington Heights, where they'll be part of that 9/11 celebration, and then tell the young cadets what it's like to really be a member of today's Navy. So they'll spend about 2 hours there. The afternoon, they will go and visit hospitalized veterans at John Peter Smith Hospital. That's something we've done for 4 years, and it's very impactful for not only the veterans, but for the sailors. You come in on Monday night, 4 to 6 p.m. Rotary Club of Fort Worth is hosting a happy hour. Come buy a sailor a drink. And it's going to be at Grace. We have moved the location, so location change. On your table, there are Q scans that you can buy a ticket and buy a drink for a sailor. Come, we would love to see you there. And then Tuesday morning, thanks to Walter Littlejohn, a Navy veteran, by the way, and the Fort Worth Club, the sailors will get to meet former Secretary of the Navy, Gordon England, who is hosting a breakfast for them that day. So sign up for the happy hour. If you want to come to the dinner, come to the dinner. I'm working with Maddie on having a permanent USS Fort Worth exhibit in the new City Hall when it opens up in Pier 1, because that's going to last longer than the ship, we are afraid. But so come. Hey, sailor, new in town? Come on.
Okay, Richard Knight, Tarrant Area Food Bank, you've got to follow that. Good luck.
I know, it's not fair having to follow Ames and JR, but I will be brief. A word from your sponsor, literally, your sponsor. I need 20 of my fellow Rotarians to come with me to the Tarrant Area Food Bank on Wednesday, September 21st, for 3 hours, 1 o'clock to 4. I know it's the middle of the day, I get it. I'm taking off work half the day so you guys can come join me, okay? Wednesday, the 21st, from 1 to 4, Tarrant Area Food Bank. We're gonna pack some lunches and do a good deed for the community. So come see us. Appreciate it. Oh, sorry, almost forgot. Captain Kirk is gonna be in the back doing signups at the end of the meeting. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Richard. Now to tell us about our Rotary Reading Buddies, our 3rd grade buddies at Walton Elementary, Maddie Compton.
Good morning. I guess it's actually afternoon. Yesterday was International Literacy Day, and each of you probably received an email and an appeal from the Rotary Foundation asking for a financial gift to support literacy projects around the world. And one such program is featured on the cover of this month's Rotary magazine. It's called The Gift of Literacy, and it's a project in Guatemala. I'm here today asking you to give the gift of reading to 3rd graders at Marjorie Walton Elementary School. This would be our 5th year of being Rotary Reading Buddies. Now, what is a reading buddy? It's a person who would agree to take on 2 students, 30 minutes at a time, and listen to the student read. You don't have to read, you just have to listen. The Reading Buddy program's ideal time for you to do this is from 7:50 a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m. at Marjorie Walton Elementary. So on your way into work, you can have an opportunity to really enjoy listening to the little ones read to you, helping them find the way, and helping them sound out words that they can't pronounce. You don't have to pick the book. The school will do that for you. The only thing you have to do is go online to the Fort Worth ISD background check link, and that's a very easy process. You'll fill it out in about 15 minutes, and I promise you, probably by the end of the day, you will find out that you have been approved to participate in this program. There are no COVID-related policies in place in Fort Worth ISD any longer, so you're not required to wear a mask. You can wear one if you'd like. You can ask the student to wear one if you'd prefer. So just remember that I'm not asking for money, although I tell you, we would be happy to accept any that you would like to give. But I am asking you to give some time in order to give these students the gift of reading. We already know, and we'll hear more today, about the losses in competency that our students have experienced over the last 2 years of COVID. So help them catch up, and you can communicate with me at my email address. It's also in this week's rotograph, and let me know whether you're willing to participate. We need 28 Rotarians to be reading buddies. Give the gift of your time and give the gift of reading. Thank you.
To underscore Maddie's remarks, if you look at the papers that are placed at your table in support of Secretary Geren's announcements or presentation today, you will see, if you look up Marjorie Walton in District 5, that only 27% of students are currently performing at grade level, which is a considerable increase from last spring when it was 16%. But obviously, there's a lot of work to be done. And now, with an Interact presentation, Larry and Karen Empin.
Hey, this is another call for volunteers. Okay, President Sean decided one Interact club to start is not enough, so we're going to start 2 Interact clubs. We're going to start one at I Am Terrell and one at the Young Women's Leadership Academy. We'll start this program in November. They'd be on Tuesdays at the Young Women's Leadership Academy at 4 p.m. Meetings will last about 30 minutes. And at I Am Terrell on Mondays at 4 p.m. We're going to have a presenter and one other Rotarian there that'll talk about their Rotary experience at these meetings. Karen and I'll be back here, and we'll be sign-up sheet, and we'll get you a little more information. This program's just getting started, so we're looking for about 20 volunteers, so thank you very much.
Thank you. We think this is something that really isn't too big of an ask. These are high school students. They are top performing students. They're at the Magnet STEM and Visual and Performing Arts campus and our YWLA Women's Leadership Academy. These kids are very motivated, and they just need an hour of time a week, and we will be guiding them, helping them learn all the best there is about Rotary, the business ethics, community service, peace building, international relations, and so on. And now, we have Kathy Sheffield, our secretary, to introduce our first readings.
Thank you, President Snell. Appreciate you. We have 6 first readings today. The proposed new members are Jeremy Benazzi. He's a comptroller, and his company is Delta Oil and Gas, classification mineral oil industry refining, and the proposer is past President Courtney Lewis. Our second new member proposed is Dresden Eidelman, business development. The company is Guaranteed Bank Trust, the classification banking marketing services. Proposer Vice President Rebecca Montgomery. Number 3, Karen Vermeer Fox, Association Manager, Company Quandigo Management, Classification Management Associations, Proposer Past President J.R. Labby. Number 4, my friend Laura Patton, Principal Gifts Officer, Texas Health Resources Foundation, Classification Not-for-Profit, and her proposer is my other friend, President Sean Snell. Number 5, Ashley Sites, Client Executive, I hope I pronounced that right, Sites. I made it twice, so one of the two should be correct, right? Client Executive, Company Holmes Murphy, Classification Insurance and Benefits, and the proposer is Jason Byrne. And our last new proposed member is Austin Spinney, Vice President Commercial Lending, Company Cadence Bank, Classification Banking Commercial, and proposer is past President David Campbell. If no written objections are received in the Rotary office by September 16th, these proposals will be given second readings and voted on by the club.
I now have 2 blue badge presentations. Could I please have Kashondalyn Bryant and Dianelle Waters? Hello, Dianelle. Welcome to both of our new blue badge members. Now, to introduce several new members, Pastor Charles Johnson and Jim Austin, please come to the stage. Deborah Peoples and Jade Miller as well.
President Sean, thank you. We have so many special guests here today to hear Secretary Geren, but we'd be remiss if we didn't recognize our Fort Worth ISD Interim School Superintendent, Karen Molinar, and our Fort Worth ISD School Board Chair, Toby Jackson. So it is my great pleasure to sponsor Deborah Peoples, and her last name is indicative of who she is. She is a people person. And I'm going to say 2 or 3 things about her. She's invited us all to Thanksgiving dinner because she makes a mean turkey dressing. And she says she's no slouch on the grill either. She has 2 daughters, Whitney and Channing is a filmmaker, which is interesting, and Whitney is the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion for the medical school at the University of Michigan. And her godchildren and her grandchildren call her Tutu and Gigi. Deborah, come to the podium.
Thank you. Well, I am so excited to be joining this group. You just don't know. I'm going to speed through my red badge. But I was supposed to tell a fun fact. So if I said, throw me some beads, mister, who would understand that? Would you understand it? There you go. Because the fun fact about me, Alex, is that I belong to a crew in New Orleans, the Mystic Crew of Femme Fatale, an all-female crew. This is our 10th anniversary, and Secretary, I parade every year. Thank you. This way? Okay.
There's another overachiever. She can't wait to get that blue badge. Jim Austin, you're up.
I got the email. It is my pleasure to be here today. I'm so proud. I landed in Fort Worth about 45 years ago. I found a home. Second thing I did was join Rotary. So been here for 45 years. The gentleman that I'm going to introduce today, He's a sharp dresser, so now we're going to have two sharp dressers, John Barnett and Jade Miller, okay? So you will know. And Mr. Knight also, he's the third. So now we're going to have three every Friday, because if you notice, John's always got us all outdressed. But I'd like to introduce Jade Miller. He's the superintendent of the program, the new Rocket Ship, a brand new charter school that's here in Fort Worth, and we've become very, very close friends, even though we belong to two different fraternities. I'm a member of the proud member of Men of Achievement, Kappa Alpha Psi, and he belongs to another fraternity. So he is originally grown up in Fort Worth and Stop 6. Has 3 children, two girls and a boy, and a dog. And so Jade will be a tremendous member of this club. He's a giver and a sharp dresser and a great guy. I give you Jade Miller. Now, was that a minute?
I'll be quicker than that. Thank you so much, Jim, for your sponsorship and your friendship. And I think Jim has said a lot of it, but one interesting fact about me, during the pandemic, my wife and I were pregnant together. She was pregnant with our youngest son, and I have 3 sons, Jackson, Mason, and Grayson, and I was pregnant with a baby called Rocket Ship. So I'm super excited that on August the 8th, we gave birth to an exciting opportunity for students to have an additional choice and join my colleagues who are in the work of ensuring that the great city of Fort Worth has a bright future because we are investing in our students. So thank you. I look forward to contributing and learning from you all.
Welcome to all of our members. And now, the moment we've been waiting for, there are a few photos that you'll see on the screen. You know, it's an honor to have someone like Pete Geren not only serving us in our community and serving us in our country, he was also a past president of this club. He joined Rotary 40 years ago this month, September 1982. And to tell you more, here is past President Gary Cumby.
That's all right. Wait till I'm through. I think we're going to have to come up with a new roast category or new roast award the day that everybody thought they were the program. And I'll just join the group now. I am happy to get to introduce my friend Pete Geren today, although obviously most of you already know him. But if you don't, you should. Now, I looked around a while ago to find Pete, and someone said, well, I think he's working the room. But when I spotted him, I realized, no, the room was working him. So good luck to all of you. Pete is a Renaissance man, and no, that doesn't mean he should have lived 400 years ago. Well, maybe. But what it does mean is that he has many and diverse interests, and he excels in each of them. I'll start with probably what he considers his crowning achievement, and that is his family, his wife, Becky, 3 daughters, and 1 granddaughter. But he's got other family connections. He has deep, deep roots in Fort Worth, and he is a proud son of Fort Worth. Pete's initial career plan was to be an architect like his dad. He attended Georgia Tech, where I'll bet you didn't know this, he played center on the football team. Pete's kind of been in the middle all of his life. He transferred to UT, and he got his undergrad law degree there. Undergrad degree and law degree there. He worked a few years on the staff of U.S. Senator Lloyd Bentsen. He lawyered around Fort Worth for a few years and then ran for Congress and served 4 terms, 8 years in House District 12, representing that district. And while he was there, he organized a group that he called the Blue Dogs. Remember the Blue Dog Democrats, Pete? And Pete, I asked him one time what it meant to be a Blue Dog Democrat. And Pete said, well, it means that the Democrats don't really like you any better than the Republicans do. Because in reality, what it meant was that they didn't vote the party line. They voted their conscience every time a vote came up, and I just think that's a terrific concept. Need a little more of that. After Congress, Pete came back to Fort Worth. He was president of our club, as you've already been told, in 1999 and 2000. So he was our Y2K president, if any of you are old enough to remember Y2K. Pete was also became a Paul Harris Fellow. By the way, when we did the four-way test, he got 3 of them right. I was real proud of him. And after a time, Pete was called back to Washington for really the peak of his political career, secretarial work. He was special assistant to the Secretary of Defense, and then he was interim secretary of the Air Force, and then he was assistant secretary of the Army, and then he became secretary of the Army. Pete actually began his work with the Defense Department just a few days before 9/11/2001, so he was there for that. But Pete still hadn't reached the pinnacle of his service and his life of service. He came back to Fort Worth and for the past 12 years has helped direct the work of one of our preeminent organizations, the Sid Richardson Foundation. They invest in so many things that make our community better, with education being one of the chief ones, and that gives him a wonderful perspective for his topic today. So please help me welcome our friend, Pete Geren. Pete?
A lot of people think I'm boring. I can have fun. Mayor Parker and School Board President Toby Jackson, thank both of you for your service, and it's wonderful to be here with you today. Gary Cumby and I go way back, and Sean, I've just as soon you left out the 40 years ago, but Gary and I go back a long way, close to the middle of the last century. That's exaggeration, but it's a minor exaggeration. I was nervous when I was told Gary was going to introduce me, and I came ready with a story on Gary if I had to go on offense. So, well, he let me off easy. Gary, thank you for that and for your kind words. And thank you, my fellow Rotarians. Thank you for inviting me to be back with you today. Today, I'll talk about public education in the city of Fort Worth, within the city limits of Fort Worth. I work for the Sid W. Richardson Foundation, and public education is the highest priority for my board, for the members of my board, and I share their passion. Alan Greenspan once said, if we don't solve the problem of K-12 public education in this country, nothing else is going to matter all that much. And that's true. I made an assumption in preparing my remarks that you feel the same way. Of all the services our government provides, there is none more important than public education. There is no essential service more essential than public education. Today I will talk about public education differently than you may have heard before, as a city issue, as an essential public service, like electricity, public safety, transportation. In the case of public education, our city has 12 main providers. And today I'll address 3 questions. Who is educating our kids within the city limits of Fort Worth? How are they doing? Or rather, how are we doing? And what can we do to improve this essential public service? I want to begin by asking everyone here to close your eyes. Closing your eyes in a crowd is scary, even if it's a crowd of Rotarians. I see some eyes that are not closed, including my wife's. Who is educating our kids? I beg your pardon. We recently had the first day of school all across Fort Worth. Those iconic yellow school buses are back on the streets. Many of us encountered them on our way to work. 50 children on their way to the first day of school. With your eyes closed, I want you to imagine a picture of a yellow school bus. Now go inside that bus and imagine those children, not as a crowd of 50, but individually. Imagine their faces, their clothes, their shoes, their haircuts, First day of school, nervous, excited, back with their friends. Spend a moment with those children. Now open your eyes, check your purses and pocketbooks, make sure they're still there. And let's talk about those kids. Who is educating our kids within the city limits of Fort Worth? There are 160,000 school-aged children that attend public schools within the city limits of Fort Worth. And today I'm going to be talking about every one of them, not just the students who attend the Fort Worth ISD. Public education is an essential public service. It's a city issue. The state assigns our Fort Worth kids to schools operated by 12 different independent school districts, with 1 in 10 in open admission charter schools, also chartered by the state. In Fort Worth, 70,000, 44%, attend schools operated by the Fort Worth ISD. 90,000, 56% attend schools run by other public school systems. 44% in the Fort Worth ISD. It surprised me when I learned that. Why is that? The reason is that our city has grown faster in the parts of the city assigned to school districts other than the Fort Worth ISD, like Crowley ISD, Keller ISD, Eagle Mountain, Everman, Burleson. And independent school districts are just that, they're independent. They have their own elected officials, they have their own taxing authority, and their boundary lines are not aligned with municipal lines. The state assigns them tracts of real estate and charges them with the responsibility of educating the students who live on that real estate, regardless of what city it's in. The city of Fort Worth sits on top of 12 different school districts. All 12 school districts have real estate and educate kids in more than one city, including the Fort Worth ISD. Ms. Molinar and Toby Jackson probably knew this. The Fort Worth ISD educates children for 12 different cities in Tarrant County. It is confusing that most of these 12 ISDs are named after one of the cities in which they operate. Keller ISD is an example, named after the city of Keller. Well, Keller ISD operates 24 schools in the city of Fort Worth and serves nearly 20,000 children in the city of Fort Worth. I noted earlier that our population growth has been in the parts of Fort Worth that are outside the Fort Worth ISD boundaries. The biggest high school in Fort Worth is Timber Creek High School. It's operated by Keller ISD. Numbers 2 through 5 are operated by Crowley, Eagle Mountain, Saginaw, and 4 and 5 are operated by Northwest ISD. As a AHHS class of 1970, I hate to tell you, the first Fort Worth school on the list, it's the hated Pascal Panthers. My wife told me to take the hated off of that. I couldn't help it. Where's Jim Whitten? That's it. Pascal is the first. I'm not taking any comebacks on that one. Pascal is the first on that list. It's number 6 in the city of Fort Worth. It has 1,000 fewer students than Timber Creek High School. 160,000 kids in schools in the city of Fort Worth. Whether they're our children, our grandchildren, or somebody else's children, every Fort Worth kid matters to every one of us. We have a moral obligation to provide every one of them with an education that prepares them for a bright future. If that is not sufficient justification for everybody to get involved, there are very practical reasons we need our kids to get a good education. Why public education is an essential public service. And among our crowd, we hear it every day. For the good of our city, we need good schools to attract business to Fort Worth. We need well-educated kids that have a workforce to fill those jobs and grow our economy. And good schools mean better health outcomes and less crime. This is a city issue, an essential public service, and our city leaders must hold every provider of that essential public service accountable as they do for every other essential public service. And we must hold our city leaders accountable for holding those providers accountable. And what kind of job are we doing with our Fort Worth kids? Recently, the TEA released its letter grades for every public school in Texas. TEA began giving letter grades in 2018. With the letter grades, the TEA provides an assessment that all of us and the general public can understand. It made school performance reports legible for us. Before that, the annual TEA assessments might as well have been published in hieroglyphics. The letter grade report cards are changing public education for the better. Many interest groups don't like the accountability and want the state legislature to do away with them. That would be a step backwards for our kids. And our Fort Worth schools received good report cards this year, reflecting recovery from the COVID-racked 2020-2021 school year. And my hat's off to you, Toby Jackson, Ms. Molinar, and to our teachers, our parents, our kids, and school leaders. They demonstrated remarkable grit and innovation, commitment, and determination over the last school year. And the report cards reflect that. If you know someone, anyone who teaches school in Fort Worth, you should give them a big hug. We also, however, must be realistic about what those report cards tell us. For the most part, our schools rebounded from 2021 to the pre-COVID levels of 2019. And the letter grades reflected that rebound, that growth. But let us not forget that we were not where we needed to be in 2019. As part of its annual report, in addition to the letter grades, the TEA provides us with a critically important number. TE tells us the number of our students who finished the academic year at grade level, who were performing at grade level at the end of the school year. The category is meets grade level or above. The TEA provides that number every year for every public school and every child in a public school in Texas. And TEA gives our schools those numbers in June, in time to do something about it. The schools will share that information with parents if the parents request it. What was that number this year? How many of our elementary and middle school children in Fort Worth schools finished the school year at grade level? The number is 36%. 64% did not. The number was 39% in 2019. It's 36% this year. That is the most critical information in that report. Why is it so important? I think it's pretty obvious to most of us. Are kids at grade level? Simple question. As parents and grandparents, we need to know that. We need to know that as citizens who care deeply about public education. Our city leaders must know it to hold the school districts who teach our kids accountable. And you cannot discern that from the report cards our kids bring home from school or promotion rates. Many of our children who receive A's and B's on the report cards they bring home over the course of the school year are not at grade level. Only the TEA report card answers that question. What do promotion rates tell us? Again, 36% of our kids were at grade level in the testing that was reported in June. Nearly 100% were promoted to the next grade. Too many of our kids graduate from our elementary schools while reading 2 and 3 years behind grade level. 12 children recently enrolled in the 5th grade at a new school in Las Vegas Trail community who didn't know the alphabet. A former Dunbar High School principal, where's that sharp dresser? Recently was asked about the importance of meets grade level standard. He told us that Dunbar offered an excellent aviation tech program when he was there that would prepare his students for great jobs and a bright future. He shared that his high school students didn't have the literacy skills to read the aviation manuals. And there's a very dark side to ignoring this number. Research shows a correlation between 3rd grade literacy rates and the dropout rate and the number of youth in our juvenile criminal justice system and in our prison population. Every year we ignore the at grade level number and fail to hold our schools accountable, the challenge compounds, making recovery increasingly difficult and eventually impossible. This 36% is an average for all of our Fort Worth schools. Some schools perform above it and some below. And some of you may be thinking, well, I bet things are okay in the suburbs. Let's take a look. Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD operates 16 elementary and middle schools in the city of Fort Worth. 42% of those children are at grade level. Keller ISD operates 22 elementary and middle schools in Fort Worth. 47% are at grade level. For Northwest ISD's 15 elementary and middle schools in Fort Worth, the number's 49%. Above the Fort Worth average? Yeah. Good enough? I don't think anybody in here thinks so. Public education is an essential public service. Why do we accept performance levels well below other essential services? If our electricity worked 36% of the time, what would we do? Water at our homes 36% of the time, police response to emergencies 36% of the time, 36% of our roads passable, we wouldn't stand for it. Why are we okay with 36% of our kids at grade level? Well, to begin with, most of us don't know. The people in authority over our schools know. And every concerned citizen in Fort Worth should know. Our city leaders must ensure that we do, and they must hold education providers accountable. Fort Worth schools are at 36%. The statewide number is 44%. What are the long-term outcomes for our kids in a statewide school system where 44% are at grade level? Well, we've had two that looked at that very question. The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board tracked the educational outcomes for the roughly 300,000 kids who were in the 8th grade in Texas public schools in 2008. It tracked them until they turned 24. 300,000 kids. What did the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board learn? They learned that 25% of those kids dropped out, didn't finish high school. By age 24, only 20% had an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. If you do the arithmetic, that means that 240,000 Texans that had been in our public schools turned 24 and had neither a high school diploma nor a post-secondary degree. We should be shocked, but should we be surprised? What do we expect from a system that has 44% of its elementary school and middle school kids at grade level? Well, what can we do about it? Public education is an essential public service in our city with 12 providers. We're not experts in education. There are a couple of people in the room who are, or a few people, but nor are we experts in transportation, public health, or electricity generation and distribution. We don't tell our city leaders how to provide those essential services, but we count on them to hold the providers of those essential services accountable on our behalf. And we hold them accountable when we don't get those services in the quantity and the quality that we expect. And our elected city leaders rarely are experts in providing any of the essential services. They're our representatives, they're our voice. They hire experts and they advocate on our behalf with experts and service providers inside and outside City Hall. They ensure that we are provided with essential public services, and public education should not be an exception. If our city falls short in providing any essential public service, it degrades others. Public safety is connected to public health. They both depend on transportation, they all depend on sewer water and waste disposal, and they all fail if the electricity goes off. And stable neighborhoods and economic well-being and growth require all to work well and work in collaboration and in coordination. Our elected city officials make sure they do. And if they don't, they hear from us. It does not take any imagination to understand that high-quality public education is at least equally essential to the well-being of our city as any other public service. That if we fall short in providing high-quality public education in our city, throughout our city, it degrades other essential public services. It degrades public health. It degrades public safety. It increases poverty and leads to the decline of neighborhoods, property values, and employment opportunities. Now, I want to summarize a report that Brent Beasley, the CEO of the Fort Worth Education Partnership, and Brent is here, and so is Leila Santillan, the Chief Operating Officer of Fort Worth Education Partnership. Brent provided detailed information to the City Council last week on all the kids in the city of Fort Worth. He provided that information council district by council district, the number of students in each district, the school systems that serve the districts, the names of the school, and what percentage of the students were at grade level in those schools. The meets grade level or above rating ranged from a low of 27% to a high of 48%. Not a single council district had 1/2 of its students at grade level. So what can we do about it? This is a citywide issue. Short answer, support our mayor and our city council members who are working hard to improve this essential public service and hold those service providers accountable. Our Mayor Parker has done something that no mayor has ever done before. She's launched an initiative in working with every school district in the city of Fort Worth, all 12 of them. It has to happen, and Mayor Parker, thank you for launching that initiative. Council members have spoken to school boards and individual school board members, advocated in Austin for better school options for our city, raised philanthropic funds for our schools, and are working actively to improve the quality of schools in their school districts. This is a city issue. It's a council district issue. Now, please close your eyes again. Let's get back on that big yellow school bus. This time with 50 children drawn proportionately from the 12 school districts to serve our kids. Remember the report provided by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board and TEA's 36%. Again, imagine each child individually, each child created in God's own image. 50 kids, you're sitting in that school bus with them. 18 of those children are at or above grade level. 15 of those kids will drop out before finishing high school. And only 10 will have an associate's degree or bachelor's degree when they turn 24. Now let's get off that school bus and open our eyes. Our eyes are open now. And I want you to remember that school bus that you just spent a few moments on. Every time you see one of those big yellow school buses on the streets of Fort Worth, if you remember no other numbers, remember two, 36% and 18. If that is a representative school bus in this city, 18 of those kids on that bus are at grade level. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that very important message, and thank you for being here once again. I think you, of all people, know that one of our traditions here at the Rotary Club of Fort Worth is to donate a book to the public library in honor of your presentation today. There's a copy of the bookplate with your name what's in this bag as a memento for your presentation. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you, Sean. Does not look like we have time for questions. Are we out of time?
Are you okay?
I'd be glad to take questions. Gary, I'm not going to give you a second chance, man. You had your...
I'll be good, I promise.
Okay.
You started off by talking about imagining who is educating our children, who is teaching our children.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of cases, that ought to be their family. It ought to be family, at least in part. Certainly, I'm not taking away from the role of the school and the teachers, but the family needs to be involved in that. And that seems to me to be a big weakness in the education process these days. How do we fight that? How do we fix it?
You know, I don't know if everyone can hear the question, but noted the very important truth that families have to be involved. But we've got to make the school systems work whether the families are involved or not. Because we got a lot of kids where the families aren't involved. And so that means we need wraparound services. We need to look at those kids as individuals. We need to work with them in the summers. We need to work with them after school. There are a lot of things we can do to help the parents be better teachers. In fact, the 4th ISD has programs, and our foundation supports a program that teaches parents to be teachers. One of the best programs was in one of the Fort Worth ISDs where they taught parents how to be their kids' first teacher, and they even got TCC credit for doing that. So we got to do everything we can, but we got to make the system work for the kids that don't have active parents. It's a challenge, but a very high percentage of our kids fall in that category. We got to make it work for them. Tim.
I know you recognize this, but I'm curious, over time, you know, public schools inherit a lot of children who do not have quality early education. How are you feeling about our progress over the last several years? Are we making progress?
Well, Zim and Campfire operate one of the best programs in our city that helps prepare children to be kindergarten ready when they get to school. It's made a difference, but I think as citizens, we need to look at the outcomes, at what happens to our children at the end of the road. And our foundation, as you know, works a lot with early childhood. It's critically important, it's absolutely important. And a child who doesn't have that kind of experience in early childhood is really going to struggle. It's going to make it a whole lot harder to catch up. But our systems have to catch up. They have to take that responsibility and catch those kids up. So I think we think of that whole package as an essential public service. Our city leaders know that's important. And so when they're looking at how do we deliver that essential service, they work with early childhood. And I know nobody appreciates that more than Mayor Parker.
That's progress in itself.
It's an ingredient. It's yep.
What are the root causes of what's driving that racing or less than
You know, let me answer the question a different way because I don't know the answer. But we have to think of it like any other essential public service. We need to set goals and ask the professionals that spend their lives working in that industry to meet those goals. I don't know anything about electrical generation, but I know when my lights work. And if they don't work, I call my city council member. I used to call Alex. And so we as citizens, as the citizenry, it's a democracy. We set goals. Our representatives help us achieve those goals, and they hold the providers accountable when the providers don't meet those goals, and then we hold them accountable when the lights go out. And you know, I think when we try to get into and say, you know, Fort Worth ISD, you need to do this, or Lake Worth ISD, you need to do this. They're the pros, they're the professionals. And we set goals and they meet them. And I think when you have a goal, 36% this year, 45% next year, you start looking at everything. You look at early childhood. You look at different programs that you have. Are they working or are they not? I think the closest parallel of essential public services to public education in complexity, in terms of numbers, in terms of just the degree of difficulty of doing it well, is the public health system. Public hospital. Our county runs John Peter Smith Hospital and clinics all over the place. What if 36% of the people, only 36% of the people at John Peter Smith survived surgery? You know, what would we do? I don't think we'd go and say, you need to pay your doctors more, or you need to hire more of this or hire more of that. Our county officials, the county judge, county commissioners would go and meet with the hospital administrators and say, this isn't good enough. this is our goal, we want you to get there, you come up and bring a plan to us about how you're going to get there, and we're going to hold you accountable for that plan. If you meet that goal, we're going to hold you accountable, and we're going to provide you whatever resources you ask for. If you need this, we're going to get you this, but we're going to hold you accountable. If it gets better, we're going to keep you. If it doesn't get better, we're going to fire you and start over. But we don't go in there and tell them, you know, you need more of this and you need more of that. They're the pros. The people working in our schools are pros. They spend their whole lifetime studying to teach our kids. They spend their whole lifetimes learning to be administrators. They're the pros. So we shouldn't tell them how to do it. We should set goals that we believe are important for that essential public service and ask every single provider that provides that essential service to meet those goals. Yeah.
So I'm here as a guest of the record. I intentionally moved to Keller because of the simple fact that Keller had a better educational system than what I'm originally from New Jersey. I've been in the military for quite a time. And one thing that I question is, when is there going to be a balance given to the entire ISD structure to give those kids the same opportunities of education with equipment, everything? It seems to be, depending on where you live, depending on the educational level of success that you get.
Well, a great question, and I'm glad you brought up Keller ISD because I was surprised, I expect many of you were surprised that only 46% of the kids in the schools operated by Keller are at grade level. So, you know, most of us think, oh, suburbs they're okay. But I'm going to answer your question the same way I answered the other gentleman's question. I can't tell you, you know, what they need. It is not for us to tell the schools what they need. It's for us to set goals. And then they tell us what we need, and we provide it. And it does vary by zip code. Dr. Scribner always said, you know, it shouldn't vary by zip code, but it does vary by zip code. It varies by council district. And city council members are very powerful. They're very influential. They can get Keller's ISD's attention. They can get Eagle Mountain Saginaw's attention. You know, we've got 12 school districts, 108 school board members, 12 superintendents. You know, if 108 people are in charge, at least from our perspective as voters, really nobody's in charge. You've got to pin the rose on people who are responsible to us, who can make a difference. And that's why Brent Beasley and Layla and I and Mayor Parker and others have been working to make sure our city council members know what's going on, because they can make a difference. Yeah.
Are there any large cities in the country that are doing a good job of this? What are they doing?
You know, it varies. But I can tell you this, President Bush used this term a little differently than I'm going to use it. But I think, one, that most people in the country don't know the meets grade level standard. But I think one of the problems everywhere is, one, people don't know. I think if they did, they'd raise the bar. And I think kind of implicit in our approach is the bigotry of low expectations. 44% are at grade level. Well, I guess that's the best we can do. 44% of our homes have electricity. I guess that's the best we can do. 44% of our streets are passable. Best we can do. And if we accept that, that's the best we're going to do. So I would like to see Fort Worth do something that nobody else has ever done. And as a city, nobody else in Texas. In Texas, you know, we have, I think, 1,200 school districts, and that makes accountability really hard. Our city can become the center for the best public education in the whole state of Texas. We can do that. We've got the people, we've got the resources, we've got the leadership. So that's not exactly answering your question, but you're not going to find many places. But I can tell you there's a public school system in New York City that serves the poorest kids. It happens to be a public charter school. The poorest kids in the city of New York It's the highest performing public school district in the state of New York. It outperforms the equivalent of Highland Park or outperforms the equivalent of South Lake. So it can be done. You know, those expectations we have, the expectations we bring to the challenge, we've got to blow them up. They don't work. They're holding our kids back. They're selling our kids short.
Are we able to send people up there?
We certainly could. That'd be one place. But again, we look to the professionals. We're not going to tell Encore how to generate electricity. We have essential public service providers. We go to them and say, this is what we expect. You tell us how to get there. You know, that's what we as citizens realistically can do. My goodness, if we had to do that with public health, public safety, you know, we don't tell the police chief how to keep our city safe, but we require that he does. He's the expert. And our public service providers, our fire, our police, our public education, our roads and bridges, our healthcare, they're filled with consummate professionals. But none of us really reaches any higher than what's required of us. I wish we all had that drive. We've got to set standards, set goals, and then let those professionals show us how to get there. Thank you.
Secretary Geren, thank you very much for joining us with that very sobering message. Thank you for your attention. I'm going to wrap it up very quickly. We want to thank our sponsors once again, Nightway Services, Idea Public Schools. We also want to have, is Gladys Senna still here, our visiting Rotarian from Columbia. Is she still with us? Please come forward. We had to go to the bank vault to get this. This is something that hasn't seen the light of day for quite some time. It is a gold-plated putter, and it's compliments of Roger Williams, one of our Congress people, but this is for the longest serving or longest distance traveled Rotarian. It's yours. I have no idea how that gets home on the plane, but I'll let you figure that one out. Thank you very much. Ever so quickly, program sponsorships, keep them coming. It's a source of revenue for our club, projects and operations. Sunday, of course, marks the 21st anniversary of 9/11. It is now recognized as the National Day of Service and Remembrance. And with even the smallest act of service or simplest act of kindness, it's a way to honor those that were lost. Next week, we have Sharon Wilson, also a fellow Rotarian. She's going to give us a behind-the-scenes look. She's been serving for 8 years, and she's going to tell us what she found when she got there and what's left to do as she prepares to exit. Please don't forget to stop by the service opportunities on your way out. Everyone have a great weekend. Thank you.